Hi, this is Jaya. In this video, we shall see the summary of She Stoops to Conquer, a play by Oliver Goldsmith. She Stoops to Conquer is a 5-act comedy and it has a prologue and an epilogue, and it was first performed in 1773 in London. In the prologue, we see Mr. Woodward crying, saying that comedy is dead, and his only hope is that Goldsmith play will make him laugh and thereby bring the comic arts back to life. Actually, this prologue was written by the famous actor and producer in the 1770s, David Garrick. The play starts like this. In Act 1, we find Mr. Hardcastle has chosen a husband for his daughter Kate, but both of them have not met this boy. And this Kate's husband to be is a reserved man of very good looks, and he is also the son of Mr. Hardcastle's old friend Sir Charles Marlowe. In the second scene, we find Tony Lumpkin, who is Hardcastle's stepson, enjoying a reverie at the Three Pigeons Tavern. At that time, two gentlemen named Marlowe and Hastings come looking for Hardcastle's house, but they are actually lost their way, and so they plan to stay in an inn for that time being till they find Hardcastle's house. Tony does not know who they are, but the audience will know that Marlowe is the son-in-law to be to Mr. Hardcastle, and Hastings is his friend. And Tony, not knowing who they are, wants to play a joke on them, so he gives the directions of Mr. Hardcastle's house, but he describes it as an inn. And he also tells him that this inn is run by an eccentric man who thinks that he is a gentleman, but he is not a gentleman, so you treat him like an innkeeper. And both of them nod their head. In Act 2, we find Hardcastle giving instructions to his servants who are all working in his farm, and he says that he is expecting his future son-in-law Marlowe to come there at any time, and he instructs the students on how they have to behave like the servants of a gentleman. And at the same time, on the way to Hardcastle's house, Marlowe tells to his friend Hastings that he always feels very shy when he is with proper ladies. In fact, he won't even lift his head and look at their face. And he says he is very free when it comes to the lower grade ladies, the other ones. But only with gentle ladies, he is very, very shy, and he cannot even speak with them or look at their face and converse. They come to Hardcastle's house, and since they think it is an inn, Marlowe and Hastings are very rude to Mr. Hardcastle. And Hastings meets Miss Constance Neville, who is Mrs. Hardcastle's niece. Instantly, both of them fall in love, and Constance tells him that this is not an inn, but it is actually Hardcastle's house. And she also tells him that though they are in love, there is no chance for them to get married. So he says, we will elope, because he has decided that she will be his future wife. But she says, no, all my jewels, which is my inheritance, is with Mrs. Hardcastle, and I don't want to give it up. So the both of them plan an idea to get her jewels and then elope. Now Hastings decides that he should not tell that this is Hardcastle's house and not an inn to Marlowe, because if Marlowe comes to know that this is Hardcastle's house, he will ruin both Hastings and Constance's plans. And Hastings introduces Marlowe to both Constance and Kate, and Marlowe is extremely shy, so he doesn't even look up. And Kate finds this sort of a behavior somewhat putting off, but she is attracted by his handsome features. But his shyness, that is over shyness, makes her to doubt whether she will be happy as a wife with him. At this time, Mrs. Hardcastle arrives, and Hastings teases her lack of connection to London and the fashionable society there. Then, while talking to Tony, Hastings discovers that Tony's mother is actually compelling him to marry Constance so that she can keep Constance's jewels in the family itself, but Tony hates the idea. So he reveals that he and that is Hastings and Constance are in love and they want to get married. And Tony is very happy about it because he does not want to marry Constance. So he promises Hastings that he will get Constance's jewels and give it to them and also help them to elope. In the third act, we find Hardcastle confused about why his friend Sir Marlowe had recommended his son for his daughter, since he finds young Marlowe very rude and contrary to what his friend had told him about his son. And Kate and Hastings discuss about Marlowe, and Kate finds that Marlowe is of two personality. Marlowe treats Hardcastle very rudely because he thinks he is an innkeeper, and to Kate he is extremely shy and reserved because he thinks that she is a lady. He doesn't even look up at her face. At the same time, here we find Tony somehow getting Constance's jewels and hands it over to Hastings. And without knowing of their plan, Constance also wants to get her jewels. So she goes to Mrs. Hardcastle and she says that she wants to wear her jewels and her intention is to keep it with her itself and elope. So when Mrs. Hastings is going to take the jewels, Tony comes and stops her because if she opens the cupboard, she'll find the jewels missing and he will get caught. So he tells her not to give Constance the jewels but to tell her that she has lost the jewels. And Mrs. Hastings goes and tells Constance that she has lost the jewels. And Kate finds out about the joke that Tony had played on Marlowe and Hastings and why they are behaving like this and why they are thinking that their house is an inn. And she also does not want to reveal the deception. She wants to continue with this act. And Marlowe mistakes Kate for a barmaid when he sees her in the bar. And thinking she is a barmaid, he literally flirts with her. And this Kate finds very interesting. At that time, Hardcastle comes there and sees them flirting and Marlowe runs away. But Kate, who now likes Marlowe a lot, decides that she has to prove that he is also very respectable to her father. In the next act, Constance informs Hastings that they are expecting Sir Marlowe to visit and they have to finalize Marlowe's and Kate's wedding. And Hastings, meanwhile, has sent Constance's jewels to Marlowe for safekeeping. But he does not tell Marlowe any instruction. So Marlowe gives the jewels to the servant thinking that servant is the landlady. And this servant in turn hands over the jewels to Mrs. Hardcastle. Now Mrs. Hardcastle is so happy to get back the jewels, so now she keeps it very carefully. And Marlowe in between tells Hastings about the barmaid he fancies. And he says that he would love to marry her. And when Hastings asks about the jewels, Marlowe says that he has returned the jewels to landlady to keep it safely. Now Hastings knows that he will not get back the jewels, so he decides that he and Constance will have to elope without the jewels. Finally, Marlowe comes to know that the place in which they are staying is actually Hardcastle's house and not an inn. And he is upset that Marlowe and Hastings also gets upset that Marlowe has encouraged all the servants to get drunk without knowing that they are actually Hardcastle servants, but he thinks that they are the servants working in an inn. Kate continues to pretend as a barmaid and moves very closely with Marlowe. And Marlowe tells her that he would like to marry her, but only he is doubtful whether his father and the society will allow, which he doubts. Meanwhile, Mrs. Hardcastle, who now has got back the jewels of Constance, compels Tony to marry Constance. However, by now, Tony has prepared the horses for both Constance and Hastings so that they can elope. Mrs. Hardcastle comes to know about the elopement and plans to take away Constance to her Aunt Pedigree's home. So she tells Tony to take both of them to Aunt Pedigree's home. Marlowe is very angry with Hastings for not telling him that this was actually Mrs. Hardcastle's house and not an inn. And Hastings is also very angry with Marlowe for returning the jewels to Mrs. Hardcastle. And now, since Constance is also not to be seen anyway, they don't know what to do. So they come and ask Tony, and Tony tells, "Don't worry, I have another plan." And in the final act, we find Sir Marlowe and Hardcastle discussing Marlowe's and Kate's marriage. And Tony, instead of taking Mrs. Hardcastle and Constance to Aunt Pedigree, he takes them round and round and round and brings back them to the same place where they started. Now Constance decides not to elope but to talk to both Mr. and Mrs. Hardcastle and get their approval and also get back her inheritance and to get honorably married to Hastings. Marlowe also comes to know about Kate's true identity, but since now he feels very comfortable with her, he is very happy, and the play ends with both the couples marrying, and then comes the epilogue where Goldsmith summarizes the play and justifies the title She Stoops to Conquer. Stoops means coming down from your level, and here Kate stoops down in a rank so that she can conquer the difficulties put upon the characters by the society, and how she marries the man who she loves at first sight. This is a beautiful play written by Goldsmith. Like this video and also write any extra points if you would like to add on to what I've said in the comment box, and share this video with your friends and keep supporting. Thank you.